It's Friday. Good morning. I'm Conservative Cat. I so do appreciate you being here on a Friday morning, 6:18 a.m. Pritzker, Governor J.B. Pritzker, he hit the jackpot in Las Vegas, apparently. He released a partial tax filing. His taxes were released, and it shows that he made like $10.3 million or something like that in income. And part of that income, a good chunk of that income, actually came from winnings in Las Vegas. Really? Seems a little sus to me. And if we had a responsible media, they'd get to the bottom of it, find out who he was playing with, what casino he was at. But we don't have a serious media. We don't have a responsible media. And they're kind of thinking this is cute, that the governor likes to play cards. Oh, how cute is that? Oh my gosh. So we're going to get into it. I do want to talk about this first, though. He was very fired up. This is Jason Miyares. He is facing off with Jay Jones in Virginia. We've talked about this a lot on the show. It's an attorney general position they're fighting for. And he showed no mercy during the debate. They have one debate, the Virginia Attorney General debate. We're going to cover that here on Conservative Cat. Subscribe to the channel. Share this out with your friends. We're also going to talk about Kristi Noem because there's a video. You might have seen it if you were at an airport recently. But there's a video of Kristi Noem, how they're being played in airports. Okay. Now, these Democrat senators have come out and said that she is in violation of the Hatch Act. And they're saying that she's in violation over this TSA video that she had put out there, really blaming the Senate Democrats for the government shutdown. Okay. So we'll play the video. I'll talk about the Hatch Act and how the Democrats are actually the biggest culprits, or they're the biggest offenders of the Hatch Act and have always been the biggest offenders of the Hatch Act. And I'll prove to you that this is not a violation of the Hatch Act, what Kristi Noem put out there in these airports. And then later, of course, I got to talk about Illinois snap scam. This is wild. Fat bureaucrats, and I mean that in the most literal sense of the word, fat. It's so odd. The biggest advocates for this always wind up being like 200, 300. Now, I'm no skinny princess. Okay. I'm 20 weeks pregnant. I'm not feeling really skinny. But I can tell you right now, there is abuse in the SNAP program. And it's so odd to me that the biggest advocates for the SNAP program are gigantic. And I mean that in the most literal sense of the most literal of terms. Okay, I'm not exaggerating. These are people like who are 300 pounds, pushing up to 300 pounds, and they're women a lot of the time who have shaved heads, pink hair. So we're going to talk about the error rate. We're going to talk about the $700 million that Illinois could be on the hook for if they don't get that error rate down. Because the federal government isn't going to match it if they don't bring down that error rate. It's just welfare waste. So we're going to get into all of it. You won't want to miss a second of this show. Virginia Democrat Attorney General, he's the incumbent, Jason Miyares, and he's facing off with the Democrat nominee. Sorry, the Republican is the incumbent, and then the candidate he's going up against, Democrat Jay Jones. We've talked about this on our show for days now. The violent text messages, they were front and center last night during the debate. They faced off in their one and only debate, Jay Jones and Jason. And the Jones campaign has really been plagued since news broke out about the text messages. They haven't handled this well. We talked about that yesterday where, they issued a statement. Really, the statement was Donald Trump bad. My opponent, Jason, is bad. and he never really apologized. And then he issued a second statement, and it was really half-assed apology. He showed little remorse in the second statement, and then even went as far as to say that it's kind of normal or common for you to wish death or to fantasize about killing your political opponents. In this second statement, now he's officially apologized on air, unequivocally apologized for the text messages he sent to a former Republican colleague in the Virginia House of Delegates, Kerry Conner. So that was in August of 2022. The messages are about him fantasizing killing the former GOP colleague of his and then Speaker of the House, Todd Gilbert. And then he also fantasized about Gilbert's children dying in the arms of his wife, Jennifer. So it's really sick stuff, the text messages. Jones eventually apologized for this. This is so fascinating because yesterday I was like, yeah, he wasn't really apologized for it. And then he comes out and he apologizes on air during the debate. So this was at the University of Richmond. Jones brought up the text messages himself, and then he apologized for them. So let's take a listen. Here we go.
And right now, you may say that you are sorry, but look back at what happened. You had 3 years to say you're sorry, Jay, and you didn't. 3 years to actually recognize what you did was horrific. You chose to stay silent. Kerry Conner called you out then. You doubled down. It was after she called you out for these text messages that is when you said you advocated for violence against children. And when this became public, we now know your first statement wasn't saying I'm sorry. The words I'm sorry wasn't even in your statement. It was to say we all send text messages we regret. You attacked the president and you attacked me. And right now you may say that you are sorry. But look.
Okay, so that was his opponent, Jason, responding to the apology. Here's what Jones said in the apology. He said, I'm ashamed, I'm embarrassed, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry to Speaker Gilbert. I'm sorry to his family. I'm sorry to my family. And I'm sorry to every single Virginian. Okay, so Jason, he confronted him on the debate stage over his political violence. I've got another clip here from the debate of Jason. Let me share this one with you. I think this is a different one. I don't think that's a different one. This one is. Sorry, folks. I'm just doing this, trying to make sure that I pulled several clips, so I want to make sure I get the right one. Okay, so here is what Jason said.
And let's be clear. There is a reason why the Fraternal Order Police, the PBA, and every single major law enforcement association in the state of Virginia has not just endorsed me, Jay. They've said you need to drop out. And I find it a little bit stunning that today you say one of the pillars of your public safety platform is protecting children. Were you protecting Jennifer's children when you said you wanted to see them die in their mother's arms? How can anybody who's ever worked in any of the crimes against children, all of the areas of federal and state local law department, how can they ever take you seriously, be the top prosecutor, knowing that you view that children should die to advance a political agenda? It's unconscionable, and if you were truly sorry, you would not be running for this office because you disqualified yourself. And let's be clear, there is a reason why the Fraternal Order...
Okay, so that was Jason Miyares, who is running against Jay Jones. And it was his turn to say something after his little apology. He says, you know, I'm ashamed, I'm embarrassed, I'm sorry to the family. That is something that he should have said. Statement one, not go after President Donald Trump, not go after Jason. Then he issued a second statement and kind of gave a weird remark. Like none of the statements had the words I'm sorry in them. And here's what Jason had said there. And right now, you may say that you're sorry, but look at back at what happened. You had 3 years to say you're sorry, Jay, and you didn't. 3 years to actually recognize what you did was horrific, and you stayed silent. Kerry Conner called you out, and then you doubled down, and then she said that she called you out for these text messages, and you continue to say that you advocate against or advocate for against violence against children, and you're not you're pro protecting children. But when this became public, you did not say you were sorry. You didn't say, I regret this. The words "I'm sorry" wasn't even in your statement. And then you attacked me and President Donald Trump. That's what he said. And he wasn't done, because he brought up how, Jones has been running on this like, oh, I protect kids thing. But yet you were calling for the murder of Gilbert's children, Todd Gilbert's children, and them dying in their mother's arm. And that's really stunning. How can anybody work in crimes against children, whether it be at a federal level, a state level? How can you ever be taken seriously as Attorney General when you've said things like that about children dying in their mother's arms? You are running for the top prosecutor position in the state of Virginia. And how is anybody ever going to take you seriously, Jay Jones, if you view children, view it to be okay that children die, and it'd be okay to die to advance your political agenda or whatever? How no one's going to take you seriously. Take a listen to this. Here's more clips from the debate. I'm just sharing the debate with you if you didn't catch it last night. Here we go.
And I have to make this observation. He keeps saying that he is sorry. Jay, if you're really sorry, you wouldn't be running. If you really understood the ramifications of what you said about an innocent mom and her children, you know Todd Gilbert. You've served with him. Jennifer would come to the General Assembly. She would bring her children. We would see them run in the hallways. They were 2 and 5 years old at the time. This wasn't a hypothetical. This wasn't some figure that you know from far away. You actually know Todd. This is a flesh and blood, real husband. Jennifer is a real mom. These are real kids. How in the world could you ever show compassion and comfort a grieving mother that has ever lost a child to violence? Because Virginians, there is no cry like the cry of a mother that has lost her child. A prosecutor knows this because they've stood in that courtroom. Jay Jones has never understood this because he's not a prosecutor. He's a politician trying to save his career. And I have to make this observation.
I love it. I know that was kind of quiet, but he said, if you were truly apologetic, if you were truly ashamed, you would disqualify yourself. You would bow out of this race. He says, how can anybody ever work in any of the crimes against children and have said what you've said about the children? They were 2, 4 years old at the time. They'd run around. Jennifer would go to the state house, and these were real people. He says it's unconscionable. And if you were truly sorry, you wouldn't be running for this office. You disqualify yourself. In another clip, the Attorney General candidate said Jones has failed to understand the consequences of his actions. He also pointed out Jay Jones's soft on crime record. So that's another thing. Like, we can talk about the text messages all day, but who is he truly as a candidate? He has a soft on crime record. As a politician, take a listen.
The reality is Jay Jones is a criminal first, victim last politician. We know it from his own voting record. He thought 60 days in prison for a repeat wife beater was too harsh, and he said we had to be more thoughtful. He voted no. He thought 12 months in prison for a repeat drug dealer to go on school property and deal drugs to our children, including fentanyl, was too harsh. He voted no. He voted for the disastrous Northam Felon Early Release Program. 9,638 felons were released early in less than 2 years. 49.8% of them have already been rearrested. 70 Virginians are dead today. Dead today because a felon that was supposed to be behind prison got out early because of Jay Jones' vote and law that he championed. The reality is
So it wasn't all about the text messages. I'm glad that Jason, he brought up his voting record, his soft on crime policies. It sure seems like Virginians have an easy choice here. We'll have to see what happens. I do want to talk about the shutdown today. Today is day 17. Now, the longest ever is 35 days. So before you freak out, this isn't unprecedented or anything like that. This is day 17. The longest we've ever gone is 35. Day 17 of the Schumer shutdown. And you would think that Democrat senators would be working with their Republican colleagues at this point, especially considering that I was reading about this today. John Thune, he's a Democrat from South Dakota. He's the majority leader in the Senate. He actually is trying to, he made an offer to vote on Obamacare extensions. Now, he wants to keep it separate from the funding bill. Okay, the funding bill, the continued resolution. He wants to keep that separate. He said, don't worry, we're going to craft a bill and we're going to extend the Obamacare extensions. Okay. And in exchange, we really want you to reopen the government and vote our funding bill through. Okay. You would think that Democrat senators would be working with the majority leader, John Thune, on this. This is a huge deal, or a huge win for them, extending the Obamacare. Okay. But Democrats, instead, they want to be butthurt about a silly little video recorded by the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Okay. And she blames them, the Senate Democrats, for the government shutdown in the video. I'm going to play the video here in just a second. But several airports at the direction of DHS have been playing this. Now, some of them have refused to air it. I want to be very clear about that. They've refused to air the ad, and they have deemed it, quote unquote, coercive. Well, whenever I'm at the airport, I constantly see CNN on a loop, and I don't know about you, but I think that's pretty coercive and not unbiased. Okay. So you don't get to claim oh, we want to be unbiased or non-coercive. When you play CNN on a loop all day long in your airports. Okay. So Secretary Kristi Noem, sorry, I needed a drink of water. She blasted these Democrats in this video for extending out this government shutdown, which of course is affecting TSA workers. And this video is playing, and they had asked that the video play in every public airport in America, but most of the airports aren't playing it. I would say some of the airports aren't playing it because they're saying that this is a coercive video. Whatever. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Kristi Noem, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security. It is TSA's top priority to make sure that you have the most pleasant and efficient airport experience as possible while we keep you safe. However, Democrats in Congress refuse to fund the federal government, and because of this, many of our operations are impacted, and most of our TSA employees are working without pay. We will continue to do all that we can to avoid delays that will impact your travel. And our hope is that Democrats will soon recognize the importance of opening the government.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Kristi Noem, the United States Secretary.
So that's Kristi Noem. She had this video. It was a video announcement. And she stressed that the Transportation and Security Administration is our top priority. And it is a top priority for travelers to have the most efficient and pleasant airport experience as possible. And we want to keep you safe. So not paying them, the government being shut down, this all hurts their ability to do that, hurts their goals. Okay. And I don't know about you, but that video was not coercive at all. So now, because of that video that I just played for you, the Senate Democrats, instead of working with their Republican colleagues who are trying to make some sort of concession, they're trying to work with the Democrats by extending Obamacare, which I don't think that they have to do. Look, you're the majority party. What's the point of being the majority party if you're going to bend the knee to everything that the Democrats want? No. Wait them out. Wait them out. It's only day 17. Keep going. Okay. Now, what they're trying to do with this Kristi Noem video, they're trying to launch an investigation into her because they say that this video violates the Hatch Act. And, they really should have gotten a different guy to, talk about this, because they trotted out Senator Richard Blumenthal. Now, he's a Democrat from Connecticut, and he's known for stolen valor, essentially saying, I think he went to like Vietnam or something like that. And it just goes to show you that these people are so unserious. They're not a very serious people. They trotted out this guy out of all the Senate Democrats, and he made a video and posted it. So let's take a listen here to Richard Blumenthal. He says, quote, on X, I'm demanding Noem halt her illegal video message showing on TSA screens in airports nationwide, falsely blaming Democrats for the shutdown. It violates the Hatch Act, making travelers a captive audience for partisan propaganda. My letter is joined by equally outraged colleagues. So let's take a listen here to Blumenthal.
If you're traveling and going to an airport, Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security, wants you to be part of her captive audience. In fact, she has a little propaganda piece blaming Democrats for the shutdown. It's not only inappropriate, it's illegal for her to use those TSA monitors to spread her personal political propaganda. And that's why I am demanding that she stop browbeating airports into aiding and abetting her illegal political campaign. And I'm sending her a letter, along with colleagues who are equally outraged, saying, no, you cannot use air travelers as your captive audience. If you're traveling and going to an airport, Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security, wants...
Okay. So, stolen valor, Blumenthal. Okay. Now, he did issue an apology for it. He said that he served in Vietnam and he did not. Okay. Again, this is the guy who they trotted out there, which is just so... It just goes to show you that these people don't know what the hell they're doing. So the White House has, been known for posting memes. They post hilarious memes. You guys, of course, know the one of Hakeem Jeffries in the sombrero. There it is. It's beautiful. Starting another week of the Democrat shutdown, and they've made the sombrero even bigger on Hakeem Jeffries. Now take a look at this. Leftists are calling that a clear violation of the Hatch Act, yet no one cares because it's actually one of the smaller laws this administration has broken. You've got leftists calling that a violation of the Hatch Act, which just goes to show me these people probably have never read it. So I will do it here on the Conservative Cat Show. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Morning. Good morning. Appreciate Lisa being here. Good morning. The Hatch Act, I'm going to read it right here because it seems like these people haven't read it. The Hatch Act of 1939, it is a federal law designed to, quote, limit the political activities of government employees. Its primary purpose is to ensure that federal workforce operates in a nonpartisan manner, free from political influence and coercion. The law aims to prevent the use of official authority to affect election outcomes and to protect civil servants from pressure to support specific candidates or parties. Okay. This framework helps maintain a system where federal employment and advancement are based on merit rather than political affiliation. Okay. So the key words in the Hatch Act of 1939 that you need to know about: influence, coercion, election outcomes. Okay. How does an ad placing blame where it rightly belongs. The Senate Democrats, they're the ones who shut down the government. It wasn't even all that like anti-Democrat. They were just saying, hey, we can't perform our jobs because the Schumer shutdown, right? Or because the Democrats aren't opening the government. We can't ensure, our top priority is, and our goals are fulfilled at the DHS. We want TSA to be paid, but they're not being paid because the Senate Democrats are to blame for the shutdown. Okay, so how does an ad placing blame where it rightly belongs? I've told you, and I'll get into the numbers of how many times they voted. I think it's like 9 times they voted no on this CR, on the funding bill. Okay, the Democrats, despite a lot of Republicans, as I had said, the majority leader, John Thune, he says, hey, we'll extend Obamacare if you voted it. Like they're making concessions. They're trying to negotiate, and the Democrats want no part in it. So again, this video places blame right where it belongs, and it outlines the ramifications that are being felt from this shutdown. How is this a form of influence and coercion? Okay, all I heard Kristi Noem talk about in that video that's played around airports, some airports aren't even playing it, which is wrong. If the DHS calls you to play this video on TSA screens because it is their priority to protect people, you definitely need to play the video at the behest of the DHS if they ask you to do it. Right. You need to inform the public, and they have an obligation as a department to provide information to the people, and you're withholding that information from the people. So airports should be playing this video on a loop. If they're playing CNN, they can definitely play this video, okay? And I don't see this as a form of influence or coercion. She's just laying out the facts. Like, hey, Senate Democrats, they voted against this thing like 9 times. The ramifications of that are being felt. Our TSA workers, they're not being paid. Our top priority is to keep you safe and to keep this experience as pleasant as possible. So I don't think Noem was influencing an election. What election was she influencing? In this video, I don't think that is sheer nonsense. Invoking the Hatch Act is like this, I don't know, magical charm. Okay. They think that, and it gets thrown around by elected officials, and they've got no idea what the hell they're talking about. And whether that elected official is a Democrat or a Republican, people like to throw this around and they don't actually know what it means or what it says. The Hatch Act actually has little teeth, and I, for one, would love to see this. I think that if we were to take the Hatch Act more seriously for true violations of it, then we wouldn't have things locally where you have taxpayer dollars and resources used for propaganda or used for political advocacy. Okay, that has happened locally. McLean County school districts, you've got on their school district website saying vote yes for the sales tax. Okay, I saw it with my own 2 eyes. Those are taxpayer funded infrastructure, and you're using taxpayer funded, and that's in a violation of state law to push for political or to engage in political advocacy. You're using those taxpayer funded websites, urging people to vote yes on something. Okay. Because the Hatch Act at a federal level, this is a federal law, has such little teeth. And there have been attempts to deepen its enforcement mechanisms, but Congress has failed at doing that. All those efforts have failed. There's very little teeth to the Hatch Act because it's very rarely enforced correctly, if at all. And, there have been clear violations of the Hatch Act, and you guessed it, by the Democrats. And because there's been such a lack of enforcement over the years, it has such little teeth, and we need to make the Hatch Act strong, or the enforcement mechanism stronger for the Hatch Act. And then I think it would have a trickle down effect, and our state laws would wind up getting more being enforced more We have state statutes that say that you can't use tax. I mean, it's gotten so blatant at this point. I think Champaign County was paying for billboards advocating for some tax or advocating for some tax referendum for you to vote yes for. So, I mean, I really like my action number one if I was in Congress, probably make it to where the enforcement mechanisms of this, because you don't have a country if it's all propaganda. Okay. Now, the Biden administration is the best example of this. So there was an advisor, one that admitted she was an auto pen handler. Okay. Nira Tandon, one of the admitted auto pen handlers. No. So she's a former advisor. And this shows what a violation of the Hatch Act actually looks like, this instance. Now, there was an actual complaint placed with the Merit Systems Protection Board, and it was filed. And the Office of Special Counsel alleged that Nira Tandon, she was the director of United States Domestic Policy Council. I don't know, she violated the Hatch Act by posting statements on social media asking for money, donations to several Democrat candidates in 2024 in the general election, despite being warned against such posts. Okay, so that is actually a violation because you are clearly advocating and advocating for somebody to be elected. You're influencing, you're trying to solicit donations. This is a clear violation of the Hatch Act. And there was an actual complaint submitted. Okay. And the Office of Special Counsel had alleged that this Nira Tandon, Biden advisor, was in violation of the Hatch Act. Okay. So, quote, Congress created a rule banning all federal employees from fundraising for political candidates. Special Counsel Hampton Dellinger said in a statement at the time during the Biden administration, okay, the Hatch Act contains no escape hatch for White House officials. Back in May, I made it clear my office would enforce laws as written. Right. So his office, Special Counsel, Office of Special Counsel, the Hatch Act contains no escape hatch for White House officials. They are just as subjected to this law as anybody else, okay? According to the complaint, Tandon repeatedly posted on social media asking people to donate to Vice President Kamala Harris, who's running for president at the time, and other Democrat candidates outside of Kamala Harris, even after they started posting on social media. This Tandon woman, this Tandon, let me look up. I think it was Nira Tandon. I think it was a woman. I'm going to double check this, though, because, yeah, she's a woman. And she worked with the Biden administration. Okay, so she kept posting to social media even after she was warned by the OSC, the Office of Special Counsel, not to do it. Okay. And she posted not only for Kamala Harris becoming president, donations, soliciting donations, asking for donations for these things. But she did it for other Democrat candidates, asking for donations for these using government social media. Okay. This is a big no-no. So another Biden cabinet member, that was one violation that I wanted a very clear example of a Hatch Act violation. Okay, that's very different than Kristi Noem pointing out facts that the Democrats are the reason why. And I mean, numerically, they voted against this 9 times. Okay. And there have been negotiations presented to the Democrats, the Obama care extensions. The Republicans have presented negotiations and concessions in order to get the government reopened, but they have denied all of that. Okay, so it is the Democrats' fault for the shutdown. Okay, she's just placing blame where it belongs. Okay, it's being held up by Democrats. That's just factually correct. And then she was talking about the ramifications of what people have to know about when they're at the airport, and if they're safe or not, TSA, and the work that they've got to do amidst this government shutdown, and how the government shutdown impacts that work. Okay, so I mean, this is just an informational video. She's not soliciting donations for anybody. She's not coercing anybody or influencing anybody. She's just telling you where we're at today and what to expect as a traveler in an airport. Now, a Biden cabinet member, this is another matter, or another violation of the Hatch Act, what I believe to be a violation of the Hatch Act. Very clear example. And like I said, the Hatch Act has zero teeth anymore. It's very annoying. Human Health Secretary Javier Becerra. Now, he gave a speech in his official capacity as an HHS. And at the end of that speech, he praised Senator Alex Padilla, Democrat of California. And at the end of that speech, he encouraged his reelection, voting for him in his reelection. Okay. And that was clearly a weighted political pitch. Okay. So at a gala in 2022, Becerra, HHS Secretary for Joe Biden, he was awarded the American Dream Medallion Award, and he gave remarks about HHS in an official capacity, okay, as the secretary, and about Joe Biden's administration's work. Okay, this is in an official capacity. Now, his remarks were reviewed by and approved by an HHS ethics attorney. Okay, now after this short video about Becerra was played, okay, and the HHS, so this was actually a video that was played with remarks at the ceremony, and this was an official capacity video, okay, which identified him as the 25th. In this video, they identified him as the 25th HHS secretary. After the video played, Padilla presented him with an award, okay. Once the video concluded, Secretary Becerra thanked Senator Padilla for the award and deviated from the prepared remarks, which were approved by an HHS ethics attorney. Okay, he had prepared remarks approved by all of their attorneys, and he deviated from the prepared remarks, and he talked about how we're so proud to have you as our senator. Thank you so much for all you do for us. To my brother and friend as the senator, I will vote, someone I will be voting for in a little bit more than a month. Like, I'm going to be voting for him. And then he called for people to vote for him as well. Okay, Senator Padilla. Now, some members of Becerra's staff were recording the remarks that were given after the video and the acceptance of the award from Senator Padilla. And on recording, someone in his staff can actually be heard gasping after the secretary's comments here about Senator Padilla and his reelection and how he's going to be voting for him. And then the staffer, you can hear them gasping in the video and saying, no, you can't say that. They literally said this in the video. Okay. So there was an investigation, and during the investigation, Becerra told the Office of Special Counsel that his remarks were off the cuff and reflected a longstanding relationship with Padilla. And for the voting part of his statement, how he's going to vote for him in just like about a month or so, and he encouraged others to vote for him. I thought I was conveying anything more than what as a responsible citizen would be doing in the near future. Okay, so he was saying that just because, he was saying that he was voting, that he wasn't, advocating for everybody in the audience to go out and reelect him. Okay, I think that this was a pretty clear violation of the Hatch Act. So he was saying, like, I'm a responsible citizen, and I was just telling people what I would be doing in the near future. Okay, if you said, like, I'm going to be voting in a month, like, that wouldn't have been as bad as, hey, Senator Padilla, I'm going to be voting for you in a month. you're the best guy ever, right? And like, had he just said, yeah, I'm going to be voting in a month, but no, he said, I'm going to be voting you in as our next senator. Okay. And that, I think, was a very clear violation of the Hatch Act. Now, the Office of Special Counsel at the time was also not very convinced by his response here. Okay. So, like I said, Becerra responded and he said, oh, those were off the cuff. I've got a longstanding personal relationship with Padilla. And he goes, I don't believe what I said was conveying anything more than what I was going to do as a responsible citizen in the coming months, or in the coming month, in the near future. The Office of Special Counsel was not swayed. They said, quote, Becerra's explanations do not serve to mitigate the issuance of this report to the president. Okay, the report said. So they made a report to the president. At the time, it would have been Joe Biden. The office noted that Becerra has received ample information on the Hatch Act since coming into office. Now, those were overt violations, I think, of the Hatch Act. Now, there are some little things that are kind of maybe stepping over the line, not blatantly overt. This is Congressman Eric Swalwell. He was promoting that No Kings rally, remember? And this was obviously a Democrat protest. Okay, this was funded by left-wing billionaires. This was Democrat demonstrations. Okay, and they're selling merchandise. Okay, for this No Kings Day. This is Eric Swalwell. I think this is borderline violation of the Hatch Act. Here we go.
Hey guys, No Kings Rally is just a couple weeks away. I've partnered with No Kings here. Check out our merch, and I'll see you at the rally.
Okay, so that's Eric Swalwell. That is not as overt as like explicitly telling people to vote for someone, as explicitly soliciting donations for specific campaigns. Okay, those are blatant violations of the Hatch Act. Now, this is tricky because the No Kings rally, you have to connect it to, Democrat causes, and a lot of those, rallies and the attendance, where they were, where was this money going to once they bought the merchandise? Was it going to one of these left-wing organizations that would in turn donate to Democrat candidates? Okay, so it's kind of like a middleman. So not exactly overt. Then, of course, you've got Governor Gavin Newsom. I'm going to share this one with you. And you know what this looks like because you've seen it at a local level. Smash that like button if you've seen this, even in your own community, where maybe the choir director goes up on a microphone and tells you to vote yes for a sales tax referendum or a tax referendum of some kind. Okay. Or maybe there's tabling going on right outside, a concert, a music concert at a school district, and they've got buttons and pins for candidates and for tax referenda. Okay. Maybe you've seen that. Maybe, Trevor Sierra sends an email and explicitly says that, hey, Lizzie Johnson and others were walking around trying to collect donations for a campaign that was designed to eliminate the county auditor position, or to advocate against, or to advocate for a referenda that would eliminate the county auditor position. Happened in McLean County, by the way. There was a fellow, he emailed, apologized because he actually donated to the cause. This was a cause that was set up, a PAC that was set up, and their goal was to get the referenda passed that said, hey, let's eliminate the county auditor position. Okay. So there were emails out there from Trevor Sierra talking at, like, maybe you've seen this locally. Now in California, Governor Gavin Newsom, he's not a federal employee or official, state. Okay. Now he is using his office obviously to promote progressive and Democrat agenda, and he's used his office, and this promotion is like on steroids. Okay. I think that he's a great offender. Now, there should be state statutes in California. I know Illinois' law is a little bit more. California law, I'd imagine there's a state statute out there that says that, hey, if you're state employee, official, elected official, you can't use your official capacity to go out there and campaign or do political advocacy. Okay. Now take a listen to this. Governor Gavin Newsom, I think, is an offender. Now, Hatch Act is federal, but your state probably has a similar statute. Locally, you probably have a statute that says that, if not ethics ordinances. Take a listen to this. Here we go.
No kings. A declaration of independence against the tyranny, against lawlessness in the context that there was no rule of law. It was the rule of king. And I think increasingly people are waking up to the rule of law in this country, increasingly appearing to be the rule of Don. And I hope it's dawning on people how precious this moment is and what's at stake. And so I hope people put a stake in the ground, take the opportunity and time to participate this weekend, but again, do so peacefully with a deep realization of the consequences and what the founding fathers were all about. No king.
No king. So he was calling on people to participate in these rallies. Now it wasn't maybe as blatant as Eric Swalwell, who was selling merchandise for these rallies and who was collecting that money, from the merchandise. Where was that money going? Was that money then turned around to, he posted this on Eric Swalwell, his official, in an official capacity of some kind. And then you've got Governor Gavin Newsom posting that on his official social media page. So, oh man, could you imagine what Governor Gavin Newsom would do if he was president? He'd be in violation of the Hatch Act probably all of the time. Just like Joe Biden was. Joe Biden's officials, I gave you 2 examples. There are probably a plethora of examples. I just pulled a couple of them. But meanwhile, you've got the Senate Democrats, okay? They are continuing their fishing expeditions. They are saying that Kristi Noem was in violation of the Hatch Act, but you've got to do some mental gymnastics there to try to say that that video was in violation of the Hatch Act, okay? I will admit that the Gavin Newsom one and the Eric Swalwell one aren't overt violations of the Hatch Act. Or, obviously Gavin Newsom isn't a federal employee or official, but they're close. They're way closer than Kristi Noem's video, right? They're looking for a crime, the Senate Democrats, to pin on this administration. And you would think that they'd learn by now, to stop doing that. Stop trying to look for crimes to pin on the Trump administration or Donald Trump. The senators are asking the DHS to provide information on the funding used to produce the video, including costs, the approver of the funds, whether anyone from the Trump administration was consulted on the video, and if anyone like outside contractors or organizations were involved in the creation of this video. And they want all of that to assess whether any federal laws were violated or funds were misused. This is what they said in the letter that they want information on. Now, look, DHS, they probably pulled this from their, it's informational. Okay. Now, Champaign County, they kind of did the same thing. They argued that the billboards were informational, but solicitation, if somebody's trying to get you to buy something when you see it, you know what I mean? It's an advertisement or a gimmick when you see it. Now, did they explicitly say, vote for this, vote yes on this tax referenda? No, but they use taxpayer funds for these billboards to the tune of thousands, by the way. Now that I believe is a misuse of funds because these weren't super informational. In fact, they were, I would argue, spreading disinformation Okay, they were saying that, oh, well, we're going to fund public safety for this. Well, you can't say that because the tax hike, the revenue generated from the tax hike was going to go into a fund, and you can't take that revenue and set it aside. Okay, it was going to go into like a general fund type, and you can't for sure guarantee that the money is going to go to public safety. Okay, and to getting more officers or whatever in Champaign County, what they were pitching at the time. Okay, you can't promise that because it's not true. The money is being the tax hike is being allocated to the general fund, which, I mean, unless they passed a ordinance saying that, hey, this money generated from the tax hike is going to go to public safety and this fund, then you could say that. But they didn't do that, I don't believe. So yeah, that was disinformation. Now, what DHS did probably with this was they took money out of their fund or out of their funding, okay, and they put out an informational video, which they really, I would argue, have an obligation to do to inform travelers what to expect, being that the government is shut down. Okay, they have an obligation, I would argue, to do that. Anyway, I expect this to go nowhere. This is just this is really a fishing expedition. They are trying to pin a crime on the Trump administration again, the Senate Democrats and Democrats. All right, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We are going to come back, and the Conservative Cat Show is the place where the truth is the main course, okay? And government waste is a side dish that you push off to the side of your plate. Today, we are diving into the buffet line of Illinois politics, where the only thing bigger than government is the waistline of the people defending big government. You know, it's fascinating, the SNAP program. The biggest advocates for the SNAP program tend to be the biggest people. And I'm not kidding you when I say that. And I'll prove it. So we're going to chat about the SNAP and how Illinois is a part of this 21 state coalition. They're trying to block the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, from accessing, just much like the Governor J.B. Pritzker, is blocking data from the feds, voter data from being reviewed by the feds. They're blocking that. They don't want to give up the voter data. And really it's just routine to make sure they're in compliance with the National Voters Act, right? And federal law. But they're not giving that up. They're not giving up the data from SNAP either. Who's getting SNAP benefits? They're not giving that up to the feds. And the Attorney General, Kwame Raoul, kind of stayed in order. So they were ordered to hand over that data from the feds. The USDA wants that data, but the Attorney General and other states were kind of stayed that order. So we're going to come back, chat about that. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. I'll be right back. And then we'll also talk about Governor J.B. Pritzker winning this $1.4 million, because I think that's just shady. 10 million. Somebody's got to ask questions. If we had a serious media, they'd be asking questions. I'll be right back. already, go ahead and smash that like button. Share this out with your friends. I so do appreciate you being here this morning. I do want to chat about the SNAP program. So there was some developments here with SNAP. Let me pull up my... Yeah, okay. I'm pulling up my notes here. Sorry. There's some developments here. So Illinois, they are a part of this 21 states. So a lot of states are blocking the USDA from accessing this data. They call it sensitive data. Look, you're applying for SNAP. You're giving the government your information. That's going to be shared with intergovernment, okay? Especially if the USDA is on the hook, or, well, if the federal government is on the hook for paying for some of that SNAP, for some of those SNAP benefits, which is how that works. You know, federal government pays a little, state government pays a little, okay? Attorney General Kwame Raoul says, oh, this is about privacy, okay? Really, it's about power and, of course, politics. You guys don't like President Donald Trump and anything he does. You don't want accountability. And that's what this is really about. So let me start with this. USDA, they want the data, okay? People who have been receiving SNAP benefits since January of 2020. Okay, that's what they want. People who have been receiving SNAP. Now, Illinois says no, and they claim that the information that the USDA wants is highly sensitive, okay? And it includes things like immigration status. So highly sensitive stuff, and you can't use that for immigration enforcement, okay? Now, I don't know about you, but when the government says, oh, it's highly sensitive, what it means is, what they truly mean is that it's politically inconvenient for them to give you the data, okay? So when Attorney General Kwame Raoul says no one should be forced to grant the government an unlimited license to their personal information, I have to laugh, because this Attorney General, the state, okay, this is an Illinois government we're talking about. They track your license plate if you drive about Chicago, really anywhere. I mean, that's like a statewide thing, state license plate or driver's license or license plate readers, okay? They tax your phone calls. They know how much you owe at tolls, okay? And suddenly they're concerned about privacy. Like, give me a break, okay? Like, yeah, right. Okay, you're real concerned about privacy, man. Okay, so they're really concerned. What they're really concerned about, I think, is what the data might reveal. Okay, if they give it to the USDA, is it going to reveal fraud, duplication, ineligible recipients, i.e., illegal aliens collecting SNAP, or heaven forbid, you know, misuse by the state agencies? Okay, where these state agencies are awarding people who are illegally here SNAP benefits, or people who, you know, have jobs, hell, maybe people who are selling their SNAP cards. You know, I've known of people who do that kind of stuff, receive SNAP benefits, and then they sell them to people, which is insane. So I think that they're more worried about what the data would reveal and what the USDA would find out. Okay. So in a recent Illinois House committee hearing, there's this woman, and this is laid out in the center square, and I was reading the article, and, you know, this is fascinating. April Harris, she's with the Chicago Coalition to End Homelessness, and she gave a very emotional testimony in this committee hearing at the State House, or at the Capitol, saying that SNAP is a lifeline, and was a lifeline for her when her husband was battling epilepsy, MS, you know, and they were homeless, and this was during a period of homelessness. Very, very touching, very emotional, the real human struggle, and that is what the program is meant for. Now, I will talk about this, though. April Harris, she, you know, says that she's representing the Chicago Coalition to End Homelessness, or whatever the hell that nonprofit's name is, right? You look up the nonprofit, okay, and they are paying their top 5 employees very handsomely. Okay, I'm talking to the tune of over $500,000, $650,000. Okay, their top 5 employees, which means they are getting 6-figure salaries. Okay, these people who work in this nonprofit organization. Now, ask yourself this: you know, how would you feel? Okay, you're tithing. You go to church, right? You tithe, and your pastor is paying himself, an exorbitant salary. You probably wouldn't like that so much. Okay. And I'm talking like, $600,000. Okay. These are 5 people at the top who run the organization, and they're getting paid each over $100,000. Okay. The average salary for an Illinoisan is $50,000. And these are people who are supposed to be doing mission work. Okay. Now, if just one of these employees, let's just say the executive director, right? Or the top employee, the highest compensated employee, they were to just give up 25% of their salary, okay, 25% of it, they'd be able to house a homeless guy for over a year, well over a year. Okay, just think about that for a second. They'd probably be able to feed a family of 4 for well over a year if they just gave up a little portion of their salary. So I just don't. If you wanted to make sure that taxpayer dollars are going towards the needy, okay, perhaps we should shut down organizations like the one you are representing, okay, because our tax dollars, and I don't know how much of our tax dollars is actually going to their salary, because nonprofits, for some odd reason, are exempt. Although they get taxpayer funding, they're exempt from telling you how much on their tax filings is taxpayer funding and how much is donations. Okay. And I want to be clear, like $600,000 for 5 people to run this little organization. This isn't a statewide organization. This isn't a statewide nonprofit. This is a Chicago nonprofit. And I don't know about you, but I've read all the statistics. Homelessness is the worst it's ever been. So we're providing some number in taxpayer funds to this organization. Why don't we take the money that we're giving to that organization, who, is clearly paying people exorbitant salaries? Why don't we take that money and put it towards the SNAP program? Okay, just keep it with IDHS, the Department of Human Services, who doles out the money for SNAP. Okay, why don't we just leave the money there and stop giving it to these non-government organizations to do the job that SNAP would do? I feel like we could be smarter with our money, right? Now, here is where the story really takes a turn. Okay. In the hearing, this isn't about helping the truly needy. Okay. This is about defending a broken system. In Illinois, DHS, they admit that they've got an 11.56 SNAP error rate. That's right. More than 1 out of 10 cases go wrong, whether that's an overpayment, an underpayment, or just flat out fraud, somebody who collects SNAP who's ineligible. 1 out of 10 cases are wrong or just flat out in error. Okay. Secretary Dulce Quintero, pink hair, and this is fascinating. Not a lot of these advocates, okay, just objectively obese. Okay. And she says that they are fixing that says that fixing the cost, Illinois is going to have to cough up because their error rate is low. So there's a federal provision that says that, hey, you have to get your error rate down. And if you don't get your error rate down, then you're not going to get the federal money. Right. So it sounds like accountability. Who would be against that? You got to get it down to 6%. Otherwise, you're not going to get the federal money that we give you. We want to give you money, but we're not going to give you money to issue overpayments, underpayments, or flat out fraud in the SNAP program. Okay, now get this. This Quintero, this is the secretary of DHS, a leader agency official with the DHS, Illinois DHS, Department of Human Services, Human Health Services, or whatever. She says that it's going to cost Illinois, if they can't get it down, that error rate down, $700 million. So we'd have to make up this cost that the federal government isn't going to be giving us. And, okay, in order to try to get that number down, they're going to have to hire 250 employees. That's right, $20 million in salaries just to fix bureaucratic mistakes created by bureaucrats. Yeah. So in order to fix our error rate, we've got to hire a bunch of people to do it. Really. You can't make this stuff up. So I want to talk about another character in the story, Katie Meyer. She's the CEO of Greater Chicago Food Depository. Okay, she stepped up to the mic in the committee hearing and she said something that caught my ear. She said, quote, work requirements don't achieve their, she was saying they don't achieve their intended goals. And she says, quote, they actually have negative health consequences. Work requirements. So another part of this federal provision, hey, states, you're not going to get federal money if your error rates are very high. And we are going to be implementing through SNAP work requirements. Okay. So I'll get to what the work requirements are because they're not really all that insane. They're kind of common sense. But negative health consequences, really, from work? Okay, whatever. That's a sentence you can only hear in, a government-funded hearing, a government hearing. Oh, there's going to be negative consequences if we require people to work. What? All right. Now, I want to remind you that the Greater Chicago Food Depository, this is a Chicago nonprofit, 3 months, within the last 3 months, they've gotten $2.1 million from taxpayers at least from July to August of this year. They were paid that money. Okay. I don't even know how much they've been paid for the year. If it's about $2 million every 3 months, I mean, you're looking at $8 million, something near $10 million a month. Okay. Or a year. And their whole goal is to run a food charity, to provide meals to people in Chicago. That's their whole thing. Okay. Why are we paying them and why are we funding SNAP? It's duplicative, you see. And then you look into this nonprofit, Meyer here, Kate Meyer, she makes herself a whopping $400,000 a year. Over $400,000 a year running a food charity. Doesn't really sound like charity to me. Okay. We're paying her organization, her and her organization, with taxpayer funds. We're funding SNAP. The taxpayers are funding SNAP. She's out there supposed to be feeding people. SNAP is supposed to be feeding people. How about this? If this SNAP is in such jeopardy, why don't we get rid of all of the taxpayer funding going to these organizations who apparently aren't doing their job because there's so much food insecurity and people are starving to death. Okay. Now I watched the hearing and I want to be very clear. A lot of these advocates, these policy experts, agency officials, they look like they haven't missed a meal in years, objectively. Okay. No, I'm no skinny princess, but like they weren't hungry. Okay. Really what they were hungry for is control and money. They want the money to pay themselves. Okay. So here is where the Christian worldview kind of kicks in. Book of Proverbs. It says, lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. Proverbs chapter 10, verse 4. The Bible doesn't say hand out bread without accountability. It says teach a man to work. Okay. So we have a moral obligation as Christians to help the poor. I'm not saying that, but we do not have a moral obligation to enable laziness or dependency. Okay. The program is meant to be temporary. And I know Christ fed the multitudes. Okay. But he did it once in the Bible. He didn't do it every Tuesday. Okay. What I mean? Okay. He told them, go sin no more. And they didn't come back for free fish and sandwiches every week. Okay. Christ fed them once. So this is not meant to be dependency and a program you are dependent on. This is meant to help you get back on your feet and to help you get ahead. Okay. And the Illinois Democrats, they've built an industry around dependency and they call it compassion. Well, it's not compassionate to pay people not to work. Okay, it's not compassionate to fund these bloated agencies who can't manage the basic food program like SNAP without an 11% error rate. Okay, it's corruption, and they're dressing it up as kindness. Okay, so the federal proposal that I'm talking about with the work requirements, what are the work requirements? Because this seems to, get lost in all of it. The work requirements are very simple. 18, you got to be 18 to 50 years old, without dependents. So if you have no children and if you are an able-bodied adult, we are going to require you to work 20 hours a week. Now get this, it doesn't even have to be at like a traditional job. You don't even really have to collect a traditional paycheck. You can go and volunteer at the animal shelter for 20 hours a week, and that will be your work week. Like that, you could do community service for 20 hours a week. It doesn't even have to be a traditional job, okay, to keep your SNAP benefits. 20 hours, that's half a work week, and that's sparking outrage. And people say that allies of the SNAP or advocates, really, I'm an advocate of SNAP. I think that, yes, if your husband is suffering from some sort of ailment and you've got children and you just don't know where to turn, I'm not anti-SNAP. I'm anti-dependency. And they say that it's harsh to require that of somebody. Okay. And then they also say, they claim, and Miyares claimed this in the committee hearing, that rural communities, they can't meet that 20-hour work requirement because they don't have transportation. One, I don't even know if that's really your expertise, Meyer, because she, like I said, is like some sort of director over a nonprofit organization in Chicago. Okay. And I want to address this. Maybe if Illinois didn't tax every little small business to death, there'd be more jobs. Maybe if government didn't spend millions on things like diversity training, sensitivity workshops, studies, they could afford bus routes that go out to rural areas. Okay. The same officials crying about transportation barriers are the ones shutting down local economies through regulation and taxes. Okay. So, yeah, I don't know. There's very simple solutions to this stuff, folks. It's not that hard. Okay, I don't even know if you can speak to rural communities because you're a Chicago nonprofit. What do you know about rural communities? Number one. Two, if we weren't taxed to death, maybe we'd be able to afford transportation, out to a job 20 minutes into the city or whatever, rural people. Maybe we could have, public transportation that would run routes out there. And if the government didn't decide to spend millions on stupid woke infrastructure, diversity, or whatever the hell that they're spending monies on, put it towards public transportation, actually, your local governments, your woke local government. We just talked about it yesterday. Bloomington has a fiscal responsibility problem. They had $25 million go to a library expansion. They had $60 million go to expanding the sidewalks in downtown. They've got, what is it? $13 million going to O'Neill Park Pool, which is only open probably a couple months out of the year. Okay, so maybe some of that money could have gone towards public transit, and I'm no advocate of public transit, but they don't fund public transit, when they've got the money. They fund all these stupid little pet projects of theirs that are gay and fake. If you're really that concerned about transportation, then fund it. Okay. Jason Bunting, a Republican from the committee hearing, he made a solid point that Illinois hasn't really required work requirements really in decades. Illinois used to have their own work requirements decades ago. Think about that. For years, the message has been, don't worry, the taxpayers will pick up the tab. You don't have to have any kind of work requirement at all. And, that's why Illinois' welfare system actually looks more like a retirement plan rather than a temporary safety net. Like I said, Christ fed them once for the loaves and the fishes. They didn't come back every week and feed on the loaves and fishes every single day. Okay. He said, go sin no more. The Bible makes it very clear. Idle hands is the devil's work, right? So in 2017, I want to be clear, our SNAP rate was 5.7%. It's doubled that now. So what changed? Well, your tyrannical government, Pritzker, they shut down your small businesses, your way of life. They attacked your pursuit of happiness and these unconstitutional COVID policies. And at the time, government relaxed verification rules because people had lost their jobs. More people needed SNAP because they lost their income. More people were trying to get SNAP. They relaxed the verification rules. They suspended eligibility reviews, and they were handing out, like, they were doing these pandemic handouts like crazy. Okay. And now they act shocked when the fraud and the waste skyrocketed. And they're like, oh, maybe you shouldn't have shut down the government. Maybe that wouldn't have raised your error rate so high, okay, and caused your error rate to inflate. So there's a deeper issue here. SNAP isn't failing because Americans are lazy. I really don't believe that. I think that it's failing because the government workers are lazy. These are people who are managing these programs. And think about it for a second. They're managing these programs and they're more interested in maintaining their funding and maintaining their jobs, not fixing the problem of food insecurity or poverty. They're not interested in fixing those problems. Why? Because if they actually solved those problems, they'd be out of a job. And it all boils down to this, folks. Public sector versus private sector. The people in DHS, these public workers, these are the types of people who don't want to make a product, sell it, and be good at something. They just want a free ride. Okay. These were people who wanted to stay in college forever. Okay. And not really do anything. They're lazy. And that's why we've got all these problems. It's because the government workers are lazy. Every error rate, every data dispute, every administrative delay means more grant money, more staffing, more power. Okay, so the error rates, they want them high. Why? Because then they can justify, oh, well, in order to get our error rate down, we have to hire 250 million more or 250 more people at the tune of $20 million, and the taxpayers are going to have to pay these salaries. Like, not to mention, I've read before where Illinois is one of the fattest states in the nation. I got to double check this actually, because I wanted to, okay. So it's gone down by a whole lot, Illinois. We're about 32 when it comes to adult obesity rates, okay, out of 50 states. So we're like smack dab in the middle. Okay, so that's still bad, right? We're not one of the fattest, but we've got a lot of obese people, and I know you know that because you've stood behind somebody in Walmart paying with EBT, and you see them buying soda and chips and Mountain Dew, Doritos, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's not about hunger. It's about entitlement. So what's next? The Trump administration, they're going to tighten SNAP. So hopefully they're going to shut this down, where they're going to force the states to hand over that data. They're going to provide some oversight nationwide. They're going to get the people who are ineligible, illegal aliens, off of SNAP. And hopefully they're going to override Illinois and their little pushback here, where they're saying, oh, well, you can't touch our data because of privacy, whatever. So they're blocking the USAID from getting that data. And really what Illinois is doing is they're blocking accountability, much like the voter data, right? The federal government wants that data to ensure that everybody who is eligible to vote is voting or registered to vote, and people who aren't eligible, i.e. illegal aliens, that they kick them off. Okay, the voter registration rules, the voter rolls. So they don't want Washington to know how bad it's gotten here in the state of Illinois when it comes to the SNAP. Okay, they don't want the public seeing how their taxpayer dollars are being spent or wasted. And like I said, this isn't a fight about feeding families. This is about shielding political allies. This is about shielding the government workers, protecting government jobs, keeping welfare dependency high enough to justify their high budgets the next year. Okay, they want the dependency very, very high because that keeps them in their positions. Now, that's going to do it for that. Bottom line, I just want to make this clear. SNAP is supposed to be temporary, helping people in hard times. It's not a permanent lifestyle. And the real hunger today in America, I would argue, isn't physical hunger. I think it's moral. People are starving for truth, accountability, and personal responsibility. And if Illinois wants to feed people, maybe it should start feeding them something called discipline. Okay, and getting them off of this dependency, because we can't keep rewarding failure, because that's what they want us to do, is reward failure. The error rate is 11.56%. We can't keep doing it. All right, folks, we are going to shift gears, and we're going to talk about the luckiest blackjack player ever in Las Vegas. That's Governor J.B. Pritzker. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I'm going to take a quick break. Let me get actually to some of your comments. JB is so oily. Yeah. He really is. Snap is like a quick racket theft grift. Yeah, I think it's really a scam. Because we've got taxpayer dollars going to all of these various NGOs. You're so right, Danny. We've got them going to all these various NGOs that are supposed to be addressing hunger, supposed to be addressing poverty. Our taxpayer dollars are going there. But then at the same time, our taxpayer dollars are going to the SNAP program. And they're both supposed to be addressing a problem that seems to just be getting worse by all measurements, right? More people are broke and can't afford groceries and things like that. Yeah, I don't know why we're funding both sides of this coin. We should just put all of our money into this SNAP thing, okay? And have people take a little bit of personal responsibility, because really what these nonprofit organizations do, they're middlemen. They'll connect you with government services. That's their whole thing. But it's like everybody is capable of going to a public library, which we fund to the tune of, in Bloomington's case, $25 million in renovations. Go to a public library, get on the computer, file an application. I think everybody's capable of that. And if you're not, then you need to be in a mental institution, or you're not capable enough to take care of yourself, and you need to be institutionalized. Okay, I think everybody's pretty capable of filing their own application for SNAP. But we've got all these like fake mission NGOs. I call them secular missions. Really, that it is. I am so anti-nonprofit. It's not even funny, because it's like they're trying to create a new church, and it's a secular church, and they think that they're, doing all this goody work, but really they're getting taxpayer dollars, and we don't even know to the tunes of how many millions some of these nonprofits are getting. I just told you about one nonprofit in Chicago in the last 3 months got $2 million. And then there's a woman there who's making over $400,000. And then there were like 4 or 5 people underneath her who are making $200,000, or $100,000, 5-6 people underneath her who were collecting these huge exorbitant salaries in these nonprofits. And you begin to question, is this really charitable work? Are we just paying allies, political allies, with our taxpayer monies? All right. Let's talk about JB. He is the billionaire, the Illinois billionaire, and he has never met a tax that he doesn't like. And apparently, he's the luckiest blackjack player ever. So according to newly released tax filings, these are partial filings, by the way, it looks like his total income in 2024 was $10.3 million. Now, that's not really shocking. He's a billionaire. Have you ever been to a Hyatt hotel? These things rake in money like nobody's business. But what is shocking is a good percentage of that income actually came from gambling winnings. 1.4 million came from gambling winnings. And that wasn't real estate. It wasn't, stocks or anything like that. He won it playing cards in Las Vegas while vacationing with his wife and some friends. Okay. I want to know who those friends were. Nobody knows who those friends were. You'd think if we had a serious media, they'd ask Governor J.B. Pritzker, and I'm going to play the clip here where he addresses it. You'd think that they'd ask the serious media, hey, who were the friends you played with? Okay. Because I've got serious questions. The average Illinoisan can't afford a plane ticket, let alone a $1.4 million lucky streak. How long was he there? How much did he lose? So I want you to picture the scene. You're in Las Vegas. Lights are blinding. The room smells of cigars and desperation. And, there's a corner blackjack table where JB sits. The guy who has raised Illinois taxes, banned or wants to ban your gas stove, has lectured you about, sacrificing, stay all in Illinois, stay home. This guy who shut down your small business during COVID, this guy, he's sitting at this corner blackjack table and the room smells of cigars and the lights are bright. And he's sharing the table, I guess, with Lady Luck. According to his spokesperson for the governor, they just said he's incredibly lucky. When questioned about the 1.4 million, that's their whole explanation. No details about who he played with, what casino he was at, how much he bet, and just how lucky he actually was. How much did he lose before getting that 1.4? Okay. I just want to know, back home, Illinoisans, we can't afford groceries. We can't afford our property taxes. We definitely can't afford to gamble. Okay. Some of us do. I don't. And I'll get to scripture. Trying to get rich quick is anti-biblical. I'm sorry. I've seen people with gambling addictions. I have people in my family who have gambling addictions. It's really sad. You can't throw a rock without hitting one of these slot machines here in the state of Illinois. It's really, really sad. And we should have never legalized it. Okay. So moving on. Let's put this into perspective. He reported a total income of $10.3 million for the year. Okay. Now, roughly 14% of his annual income, I guess, came from a weekend trip in Las Vegas. Okay, think about that. Okay, most people's savings account don't even grow 14% in a decade. Okay, this is a good chunk of his income was on gambling, and I want to know. Apparently, it was one trip. He played cards and got extremely lucky. This guy who goes on vacation and walks out with 1.4. So he's got divine favor, or he has found the secret to beating the house. And the last time I checked, the house doesn't lose. So maybe that, and I don't know who he was playing with. Maybe somebody he played with lost on purpose, or as a political favor, or as a favor to JB. Here's 1.4 million. Well, I don't know. It's very weird. Okay. I want to zoom out a little bit. This spokesperson, he did slip in that he was on vacation with his wife with some friends, and I really want to know who those friends were. Because if I walked out of a casino $1.4 million richer, my friends would either be witnesses or suspects or both, right? Were these political donors? Were these business partners? Were these lobbyists? Were they casino owners? Or was this just, a vacation group and he just wound up being the luckiest one out of the group? I don't know. Nobody asked the press, of course. They were too busy fawning over the fact that JB has this human side to him that he likes to play cards and like, gosh, it's just so disgusting how they drool over this guy. Here's a simple rule. A man who's never lived a normal day in his life suddenly plays relatable to every man. Okay. If this guy, clearly he's not a relatable guy. He's never lived real life. Okay. If he's pretending like he's this relatable everyday guy, it's probably an act. It's probably for show, and you should be skeptical. So Governor J.B. Pritzker, I think that there's some irony here because he regulates like crazy gambling here in the state of Illinois. Okay, of course you wouldn't gamble here in the state of Illinois because who would want to? You have to pay all kinds of taxes on it. Okay, this is a guy who taxes sports betting in Illinois at 40%. Calls, and a lot of these Democrats, they'll call gambling a public health concern, and then they'll create agencies or fund nonprofits like that try to get people on to not be addicted to gambling anymore. They'll take your taxpayer dollars and try to fund the solution to the problem that they created by legalizing this stuff. And, JB is also one of these guys who claims to fight inequality. All right. Well, this guy just made 7 figures in a casino on one night. Okay. Let me share with you this clip when he was asked about it. JB was asked about his earnings here. And I think that there's some irony here because he loves to regulate it in Illinois, but he goes to a different state and gambles. And it's kind of like a vegan eating or participating in a hot dog contest, right? He regulates it. Democrats, they'll go out and they'll say, oh, it's a public health concern, gambling. We have to fund this state agency or fund this nonprofit to fight gambling addiction. We'll set up a hotline, a state-run hotline. Take a listen. Here we go.
Obviously, and I've explained this, or at least we did in a statement, that I went on vacation with my wife, with some friends. I was incredibly lucky. You have to be to end up ahead, frankly, going to a casino anywhere. It was in Las Vegas, and I like to play cards, and so that I founded a charitable poker match here in Chicago called the Chicago Poker Challenge that has raised millions of dollars for the Holocaust Museum here. And particularly to stand up for civil rights. That's much of what the Holocaust Museum does. And so, anyway, that's all I can say about it. I mean, I had fun doing it. I encourage people to come to the state of Illinois and gamble in our casinos here. We have some really lovely places to go.
Yeah,
obviously,
you encourage people to gamble. Yeah, I mean, isn't that something you want your leaders to say? I encourage you to sin. Okay, and that's what it is. It's getting rich quick is a sin. Okay, gain your wealth gradually. That's what the Bible commands of us. But it's odd that he's talking about this because it's almost reminiscent of, or like it reminds me of a vegan participating in a national hot dog contest or Greta Thunberg investing in ExxonMobil. Okay, this guy regulates gambling like probably more than anybody else. Like 40%, I think, for sports gambling or something. It's so weird. It's kind of like Joe Biden driving an Indy car. It just doesn't add up. Okay. He regulates it like crazy. And he mentioned these friends. I want to know who the friends were. And I like what Becky has to say here. It's interesting that we're hearing about this now. He's launched himself on this national stage. He inserted himself in the gerrymandering issue, in Texas. Despite Illinois, he tried to proclaim, oh, Illinois, come here. Texas Democrats will provide you a safe haven here in the state of Illinois, which, by the way, is the most gerrymandered state in all of the nation. He inserted himself in that conversation. He's been trying to do like trade deals with other countries. he's just like tried to separate himself from the United States, really. I mean, the WHO, he's adopted those standards rather than the FDA standards for health. I mean, he's like kind of seceding from the United States and trying to launch himself not only on the national stage, but the international stage. So it's interesting that this is coming out now, his tax filings, partial tax filings, that is, anyway. And it's interesting that they're partial as well. Is this somebody leaking something on JB, trying to get the media to get him to answer for the 1.4 million, trying to, similar to the J. Jones tax, those were in 2022. Somebody, leaked them just when he was running for attorney general in Virginia, right? Which, I mean, was it leaked? Who wants us to see the 1.4 million, in gambling winnings? I don't know. He bragged there about his charitable poker events, which just seems like an oxymoron to me. It's not charitable to get people hooked on gambling or to encourage gambling. Okay, let's not forget he's a politician. And I want to be clear about this. He's a politician whose best hand is always the one he hides. Okay, so Becky, I'm glad that you threw that comment in the comment section. Now, let's talk about Illinois and how, you live in the real world and Pritzker lives in his world. And he will never be able to represent you in the best way because he has no idea what the real world is like. Okay. I did check. This is not, I don't think this is AI. This is real. I know it looks like AI, but this is ABC7. Colin Rugg it has this on his X account. Very credible source. Governor J.B. Pritzker says he got incredibly lucky when he won $1.4 million in gambling. And by all appearances, this was one time on a vacation with his wife and some friends. Not cumulative gambling earnings. So, I mean, I had fun doing it. What? It's just insane. And when you look at this thing, that's like 14% of his total income because it was $10.3 million is what was reported. So real world versus Pritzker's world. So back in the real world, okay, where you live, families skip meals. Families can't afford heating bills. They can't afford their electric bills, which have doubled in recent months. Small businesses are suffocating under regulations. Grocery taxes are up. Cell phone taxes up. Cost of living is through the roof. And everyday people are praying that their debit cards don't get declined. And then you've got Governor J.B. Pritzker over in Vegas celebrating what he calls luck. Look, folks, he's detached. There is no way this guy can lead us and be our leader because he doesn't understand you. Okay, you can't fix an economy when you're living in a fantasy world. Okay, 1.4 million in one day at a casino. Okay, you can't lecture people on equity when you're winning in one weekend more than what most Illinoisans will see in 20 years, if at all. Okay. Now the Bible talks about gambling. Okay, and talks about this money. Ecclesiastes 5:10 says, "Whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income." And that is the story of Governor J.B. Pritzker. Okay, a man worth billions chasing millions, still rolling the dice for more. Okay, now say what you will about Donald Trump, but him being a billionaire, whatever. There's a key difference between Donald Trump and J.B. Pritzker. One built his empire off of work. Okay, in providing a service. Governor J.B. Pritzker, not a part of his family business, the Hyatt Hotel empire. Okay, he's not really a part of it. I think he gets paid out of that, but he doesn't run it. He's not a part of it. And then he's public sector guy. Okay. And then on top of that, he's getting money off of cards, playing cards and gambling in this like get rich quick scheme. Okay. Which I'm just totally against gambling just in general. Donald Trump, I don't know. He doesn't drink alcohol. I think that there was videos of JB Pritzker before drinking alcohol. Donald Trump doesn't drink alcohol. I don't know about gambling for sure. I don't know if he's publicly said not to gamble. But most people like Donald Trump will tell you a couple of things. Deny your flesh. That's what they're all about because they're Christians. Deny your flesh, getting rich quick, alcohol, gambling. Don't expose yourself to these addictions, because you're never going to be successful or have true success or build up your empire by participating in things that indulge your flesh. Okay. So this guy is worth billions, chasing millions by rolling dice. Okay. Or by playing cards or whatever the hell it is. I'm not big on, I don't even know how cards work. Okay. I've never played a game of poker in my life. So he's chasing millions, but he's doing it in a way like there's a big difference between chasing millions and billions and providing somebody a service. Okay. Or a product. That's almost admirable. But when you're chasing millions and billions through these schemes, whether that be through the public sector, whether it be through gambling, it just isn't a good look, and it's not somebody I want representing me. Okay, so you'd think with somebody with his wealth would be content and not have to go gamble, but no, power and greed are never full. And that's why many leaders fall. And why I believe Donald Trump, I mean, it's very cool to look at this Pritzker versus Donald. They're like two sides of a different coin, or of the same coin, but one side is good and one side is evil. Okay, and has succumbed to the evil way of life. I pray for JB all the time. I think that a lot of what he does is just flat out evil. There's no other way to put it. A lot of the bills that come out of there that he signs, just flat out evil. So many leaders fall, and why Donald Trump has had so much success, and why JB I don't think would ever win the presidency. I think that he's kind of, I think that he's at the top of his game right now. Okay, and I don't think that he's going to go any higher. And once he's done or termed out of the Illinois governor position, where does he go? He didn't build anything. What does he have left? There is no true legacy. Donald Trump has a legacy. He's built an entire empire, this Trump Hotel empire. Not only that, but he went into the public sector, and he's the president of the United States, not once but twice. Won an election. You don't get much more success than that, okay, and much more of a legacy than that. And Pritzker, does he have a legacy? It's not a good one. The state is in a hellhole, okay? We're the highest tax nation in the state. We're fiscally just a mess. We're broke. We've got debt. So where does he go from here? He doesn't go up. Okay, I'm telling you, he wouldn't get elected in 2028 as president. So he's kind of like reached his peak politically too. I don't think that he goes on to do bigger, better things politically in the public sector. And he has no private sector empire that he's built. It's all his family. I think that it's really cool to see the two differences between Trump and JB. It's really cool that they're like two sides of the same coin. One side's better than the other. So stories like this matter because when you make wealth your God, or when you don't deny your flesh, and when you try to get rich quick through the public sector, the house always wins, but your soul always loses. Okay. Like your soul is going to lose, and you are going to be left with no legacy, JP. All right. Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump Jr., if they walked out of a casino with $1.4 million in 1 year after one trip, it would be front page headlines. I could see the headline now and say, GOP gambling scandal. The sin of high rollers or something like that. Okay, the headline. And when JB does it, it's quirky, it's funny, oh, look, the governor had a lucky weekend. He's just like you and me. The media treats him like, he's Forrest Gump with a deck of cards, bumbling his way into millions, and that's not true. He's not bumbling his way into millions. It's calculated, it's cunning, okay? And I want to be real for a second. Illinoisans never get a lucky break, okay? They have tax hikes, they have inflations, they have regulation, and you gamble every day of your life just to stay afloat by living here in the state of Illinois. The real blackjack player in this story is sitting across from the dealer, and that's Springfield. And every hand that they have is rigged against you, the resident of Illinois. So JB might be in Vegas laughing it up, drinking it up, whatever he does. But the chips are always going to be stacked in his favor. Okay. No matter what happens, the chips are stacked in his favor, not yours. And the Chicago press, the Illinois press, they won't talk about this. They won't ask, these tough questions. And this is what I would ask JB if I could get in front of him. Hey, who are the friends that were at your table? Which casino paid out? How many hours did you play? How much did you lose before your lucky streak began? I want to know this stuff. So he's got to be the luckiest guy, or this is just a lie. And it's not it's not real. On the 1.4 million in earnings. I don't know. It's got to be, I think it should be investigated. So here's the truth. The only jackpot Illinoisans ever hit is when the election's over, and then they realize they've been dealt another losing hand. JB will never be able to relate to you, and this is why we need to vote him out. Darren Bailey, 2026. All right. Smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel. JB, the king of all tyrannical kings. What I've read is that Trump is a very charitable man. Yeah, I don't know if... I know Trump doesn't drink. And a lot of people of this... Charlie Kirk, he never drank either. Of this crazy success. A lot of men of crazy success, they will tell you, no, I don't drink. And I don't know. I have to look this up. I know Kamala Harris drinks, right? Quite the difference, Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. And, we should never, as leaders, advocate for your citizenry or your constituents to drink or to gamble. I'm not saying a one or two is terrible, okay, but you in your leadership position should not be advocating for gambling or for Illinois or for people to come to Illinois to gamble. Okay. It's just so sick. I don't know where we went wrong, where drugs, there's a dispensary on every corner and you can't throw a rock without hitting a slot machine. It's sad. And I'll tell you right now, it's because these people want to get rich quick in the public sector. Why? Because they can tax all those things, and then the tax comes to them in the public sector, and they can get rich off of it. Okay. All right. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye. Love you so much. Subscribe to the channel. Share this out with your friends. Actually, I won't see you tomorrow because today is Friday. So have a great weekend. We'll be back bright and early Monday morning. Don't miss it. It's going to be a great show.